Shane Stacks on the radio.
Oh, yeah. I love that.
Shall we play a game?
Why, yes. I believe we shall.
Oh, I got a live one here.
Getting geeky in Little Rock. It's Shane Plays Geek Talk, a journey into the things we love. I'm your host, Shane Stacks. Thanks so much for joining. As always, bump the mic there. I'm wearing a baseball cap, Zach. Not used to having this bill. You know why I'm wearing a baseball cap? Because my hair is crazy right now. Look, Zach. My hair is crazy. So that's why I'm wearing a baseball cap.
It don't look that bad.
Well, it did before I put the cap on. So maybe the cap kind of pressed it down. But it looked kind of crazy. It looked like Doc Brown after he got electrocuted. So I don't even, did he ever get electrocuted? I know he had crazy hair. Anyway, so got a great show today, as always. Going to be talking about a very cool computer role-playing game. I'll get to that here in a moment. First, just want to, tell everyone this is Shane Plays Geek Talk. It's live Geek Talk Radio. It is talk radio. We also go out as a podcast a few days after the show. So if you're listening live on December 7th at 1 p.m. Central on 101.1 FM The Answer or via the stream at 1011fmtheanswer.com. You know, more people listen to that stream than I would think, Zach. I know a lot of people listen to it by stream. Even local folks will listen to it by stream. So I guess it's just changing the way people get their stuff.
And they got it by Facebook too.
They got it by Facebook. The video, if you go to the Dave Ellswick page, you can see the video of me wearing a hat. So anyway, just glad to have you. And if you're listening by podcast or on YouTube or on Krypton Radio or one of the other ways the show goes out, so glad to have you. It's always a pleasure to do Shane Plays. I really enjoy it. It's when I get to geek out. It's not just games, but today is games. And my guest is Al from, I think it's Scape-IT or maybe Scape-IT. I'll let him tell me. But he's got a really cool computer role-playing game called SKALD, SKALD, which is like a Viking bard, against the Black Priory. So, Al, do I have you, sir?
Yes, you do. Hello, Shane.
Hey, man. Glad to have you. We've been talking for a while. I've been following your game for a while. And I know I backed it on Kickstarter way back. And
yeah, you sure did.
Yeah, I've actually been trying to help you promote it a little bit. So I like projects like yours. So now remind me, you're GMT +1. So it's 8 p.m. in the evening for you. Why am I thinking you're in Sweden? Is it Sweden?
No, it's Norway.
Norway.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you're in Norway. You're a one-man dev shop on this game, and you have a day job, and then you're following your dream, and you have a passion project of SKALD against the Black Priory. So tell us, give me the quick, and we'll talk more about SKALD later in the show, but just to let people know what we're going to be talking about. Can you give me a really quick, like an elevator pitch is where you just have a ride with an elevator to tell somebody about something.
Sure.
So what is SKALD?
So SKALD is a retro style RPG, which is kind of styled on games like Ultima and the Magic Candle series, where we have, the game retro look and feel and in a sense a retro gameplay, but it's updated and has a lot more modern design sensibilities as well. So I think it plays a lot smoother than, those games used to do.
Right. It definitely feels like them when you're playing them. I've been meaning to do this forever, but I finally got a chance earlier today to play some of the demo, and I actually recorded some gameplay footage and put that on YouTube. So if people want to go to the Shane Plays channel, and there's a SKALD, about a 40-minute video. People can get a little taste of what the game is like. But it feels very old school, but it's also smooth at the same time. So, and there's a cat. You meet a cat at the beginning that hisses at you. So that's always fun. Now, I got to tell you, and we'll get, like I said, we will talk more about SKALD later, but
no problem.
Matt Barton is going to be happy that the first quest is you're trying to clear out a smuggling leader named the Rat Queen in the sewers. Sewers and rats make Matt Barton of Matt Chat very happy. But I didn't actually encounter a rat yet. So will there be rats?
Yeah, there are rats.
Okay. I encountered
going into the sewer?
Yeah, I encountered bats and spiders, and I saw a rat. And you know when it says you have a sewer encounter, and it shows you like a piece of art. I saw a rat in that art, but I haven't actually run into a rat yet.
Yeah, you found one or two entrances.
Yes.
So there's another entrance somewhere else where you have to go. You have to wade through some rats.
Okay. Well, I know it said go. It said go into some businesses, but I was running around and I just happened to find those stairs down. And
sure.
And those spiders. Anyway, they kind of kicked my butt. But anyway, all right. So I did want to back up a little bit, and tell me a little bit what got you into all this? And, it's not easy to make a game. I don't know anybody who's ever made a game. They may say they love doing it, but they never say it's easy. So tell us a little bit, how did you get into being a one-man dev shop? Why this game? And then, I don't know if, it's is it IT or Scape-IT? Is that your dev company? Tell us about all that.
Yeah. Let's just start it all off by prefacing that the demo you're playing is an early alpha demo. I just try to say it every time.
Right. And I mentioned that in the video too, as well.
Yeah, that's
so
good. That's good.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, Scape-IT, Scape-IT. I don't know. It used to be Scape-IT, but everyone says Scape-IT, so I guess it's Scape-IT now.
Okay.
Yeah. What was the question again?
Well, how did you get into wanting to make this game? Like where obviously you have a love of, I hang out in your Discord channel some, and I see, your activity on Twitter. So you obviously have a love of both CRPGs and tabletop RPGs. But, how did you get to where you actually took that step of, I want to make a game? Is this your first game? Kind of give us your history on how you got into this.
Yeah, I started as a tabletop RPG player, as a game master, and then I kind of didn't have time to do that anymore, and I was into programming. Whenever people program games, whenever people make games, they usually have this big RPG in their stomach that they really want to make, and that's also what sinks a lot of fledgling game developers. They try to make a really, really ambitious, big, huge open world project. So, and I kind of had one of those dreams as well, but I think I was a bit more pragmatic in the scope of the game. So this is actually the first professional game I'm making, but I've been programming for years, so it's not new in that sense, I would say. And but it's a lot of work, like you say. It really is a lot of work, but it's also incredibly rewarding. And I think for me, it feels a bit like being a game master. Only now I have a couple of thousand players. Not just
fun.
Yeah, just a handful. So it's an awesome creative outlet, and I don't know. I guess I was picking away at writing components for the game for years, and then about a year and a half, maybe two, I started to see an outline of what would become SKALD, and I kind of took the leap, and I started to plan towards the crowdfunding campaigns and setting up the community and sort of landing on the visual look and feel of the game, and kind of narrowing it down, fleshing it out.
All right. So what now? You talked about you got to, I'm guessing your day job is programming. I don't know, but it sounds like you have a pretty heavy programming background. Now, SKALD is in Unity. Has it always been in Unity, or did you shift over to Unity? Do you recommend Unity to other game devs, or, what are your thoughts on it as a engine for computer role-playing games?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I would say, for me, I use very little of Unity. I pretty much only use the cross-compiler of Unity and obviously some of the rendering pipelines in it. But, Unity isn't really awesome for making 2D games. So I do a lot of code to make the textures of the game. All the textures are drawn pixel by pixel on like one big texture that I baked together.
Yeah, they're sprites. Yeah, they're straight up sprites. Exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the way Unity usually makes games is that it makes a 3D game, but then it kind of renders it in 2D with with an orthographic camera that doesn't have perspective. But that's not how SKALD is made. SKALD is literally drawn pixel by pixel by pixel, which makes it pixel perfect.
So it's, sorry to interrupt, but I want to clarify.
Yeah.
So this isn't a game that's using a lot of tricks to make it look old school. You're literally doing it old school.
I'm literally doing it old school.
But you're using...
I have
go ahead.
huge, layers of pixels and buffers that I draw in, this homemade draw pipeline in the game. And then I kind of push out one big texture to Unity. And I just tell Unity, draw it on the screen the way Unity draws things on the screen. But up to that point, all of the animations, everything, that's literally drawn pixel by pixel in a 2D.
So you just use Unity. If I'm understanding correctly, you do all the assets yourself, and then you just use Unity to kind of stitch everything together and make the executable.
I do. And if I knew that I was only going to do it on PC, I probably wouldn't use Unity at all. But SKALD has a lot of potential for going on handheld devices as well. And I think Unity, for a one-man team, Unity is great for minimizing risk in that sense because compiling for different platforms is so well supported in Unity, and there's a lot of it's a big community you can ask. So it's a great way of making the game, giving it more legs to stand on, so to speak.
All right. So are you... do you have any interest in making games other than computer role-playing games? And I mean, I'm a huge fan of computer role-playing games. But is that you're like, that's the only kind of games you're ever going to make? Or do you have, like platformers or anything else kind of that you're itching about?
Do you mean computer games?
Yes.
Yeah, I used to tinker with other games as well, other than role-playing games, and I think they're really fun. I think writing old-school platformers is really fun. Writing your own physics engine, it's kind of a fun challenge to do. I don't really see myself doing it commercially, though. I might do something like a dungeon crawler, in which I would basically use the SKALD engine, but then have a different draw pipeline, to make like a dungeon crawler instead. I might consider making like a strategy game sometimes. But the thing with SKALD is that the way it's set up is that it's very reusable, and I kind of see myself using that engine to make RPGs or at least RPG related games for some time to come. If I keep making games at some kind of professional level, I think that's definitely where the biggest payoff.
So your RPG, so that's where your passion is
absolutely
right.
Absolutely.
In a project like this, you've got to have passion to carry you through to the end.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Cause there's times you're like, I don't feel like doing this anymore.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I've just, I'm not a game developer, but I've got a little bit of IT background and it can be hard. So, let's kind of shift gears. We both love tabletop role-playing games. I've got 1 foot firmly in tabletop role-playing game world and 1 foot firmly in the computer role-playing game world. I actually I hate the fact that the timing, because your game definitely would have made it into my forecasting the future section of Dungeons and Desktops, my book with the second edition book with Matt Barton. Your book is a perfect fit for that. So if we do a third edition, you'll definitely make it in there. But if anybody's read any of that book, they'll see a lot of the tabletop perspective comes from me. Because Matt's much more of just a computer guy, even though he's starting to play a little D&D now. What's your history with tabletop role-playing games? Like, what was the first one you played? What was the first one you loved? Do you have any specific tabletop RPGs that are directly influencing SKALD? That kind of thing.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a big question. And that's kind of at the root of it all, because that's where it started. It started with tabletop RPGs long before I started writing code or even considering making games on computers. And I think even I played a lot more tabletop RPGs growing up than I did computer RPGs as well. So that's really where it all started. I think it started when I was around 10, 11, junior high sometime. And I lived kind of out in the rural area, so we really had like this thing where it was hard to find people. And but we kind of managed to stitch together a group, and we had no one to teach us how to play.
Now, is this in Norway? Did you grow up in Norway?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is Norway. This is Norway in the early.
Let me make a guess. Was it the Dark Eye or Dungeons and Dragons? Like, what was the big one?
In Norway, I've heard about the Dark Eye, but as far as I know, I don't know a lot of people that played it in Norway. Dungeons and Dragons was way bigger.
Was it?
As far
Okay.
as I know. But this is pre-internet, so it's hard to tell what kind of communities was
Well,
working
from
around.
what I've heard, a large part of Europe, and I know that Norway and Sweden are not just, well, how would you consider them mainland, main Europe? So for a quick geography and political update, Norway is in Northern Europe geographically. However, it is not politically part of the European Union. It's also considered Scandinavia with Denmark and Sweden. And then according to some sources, Finland and Iceland are also considered part of Scandinavia, but I guess it depends on who you ask. And then on top of that, Norway is also part of what's considered the Nordic countries. So there you go. Who said Shane Plays couldn't be educational? Well, actually I said that, but anyway, back to the show. But I know like Germany and other areas, the Dark Eye was way bigger than D&D for a while. But it's interesting to hear that in Norway, D&D was the big one.
As far as I can tell, it was. Because, whenever I found RPGs in bookstores, which you would occasionally do, it was always D&D. Or there was some Rollmaster, and some MERP, Middle-earth role-playing game.
MERP, I love MERP. I love MERP so much.
Yeah. That's the first book I ever bought.
Yeah.
The black-rimmed MERP book, the softcover one.
Do you remember,
I just remember
my favorite fumble ever is the one where you trip over a long dead imaginary undead or imaginary turtle? Do you remember that fumble?
I knew you weren't going to say that. I knew you were going to
It's
say
my
that.
favorite fumble in the history of RPG. Yeah, you trip over a long dead imaginary invisible turtle or something like that, and you're stunned.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. The fumble result in question, which comes from the FT-1 hand arms fumble table, from the fumble and failure tables in MERP, Middle-earth Role-Playing, and evidently this is a modified version of another fumble in Rollmaster. Anyway, on a result of 97 through 99, you stumble over an unseen imaginary deceased turtle. You are very confused. Stunned 3 rounds. There you have it, my absolute favorite fumble result in the history of tabletop RPGs. And now back to the show. Yeah, anyway, so I interrupted you. Go ahead. So you had D&D and MERP and Rollmaster.
Yeah, and I never remember seeing The Dark Eye. Literally never. And I didn't hear about it until I was an adult.
Okay.
Fairly recently even. So I can't imagine that it was big in Norway.
Okay.
And, people might be screaming at the screen right now. But as far as I know, there
Okay.
wasn't...
It's curious.
I don't remember it.
I only learned about the Dark Eye 2 or 3 years ago, so I'm sort of fascinated. It's almost like a parallel universe in certain parts of the world where the Dark Eye was the big one, and I'm always curious, how did that influence the tabletop role-playing game hobby for those people, compared to D&D being the big one. But anyway, go ahead.
Sure.
Yep. So are there any, like what you did you go from D&D to something else, or have you always been kind of a fantasy role-playing game, tabletop role-playing game player? Or?
No, I did a lot of different games. I was always a game master, and we did a lot of different games. We did a lot of post-apocalyptic science fiction. We did a lot of contemporary horror. We played Wizards of the Coast had a product line called Alternity, and there was a setting called Dark Matter in the Alternity product line. We played that a lot. That was really cool. Kind of an X-Files game.
Okay.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. And but we did a lot of homebrew settings and systems. So we had this homebrewed science fiction post-apocalyptic setting that we played for years. And then after a while in university, we started playing D&D because 3rd edition came out, and it was kind of fresh back then. It was really easy to get back into. And we ran a campaign for years in 3rd edition. And that campaign actually laid a lot of the groundwork for the setting in which SKALD is set.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So there are things that are ripped directly out of out of the the old tabletop campaign.
So
There's even a couple of my old players are still in the Discord community even. So
so some of
awesome.
some of your world building comes directly from your tabletop campaign.
Absolutely.
I'm starting to hear that more and more, and it just goes to show that, there's so many people out there talking about their later efforts in life, whether they're making movies or writing novels or, making games. So much of it directly relates back to their experience with tabletop role-playing games.
I think the impact of tabletop role-playing is only just beginning to being shown. Especially, because there are, like you say, there are so many people coming out of the woodwork. Yeah, I used to play D&D. I used to play tabletop RPGs, and it's influenced my writing, movie making. And I think we're only seeing the tip of the iceberg even still.
Right. I agree. It's having a huge cultural impact. Not just the types of stories that were being told, not just the fiction of it, but how it helps people tell stories in other mediums, in other industries and stuff like that. So really super cool. So, do you think that as a game developer, like switching over to computer games, do you feel that your time playing tabletop RPGs and learning the mechanics and all of that, do you think that gave you a leap forward, developing a computer RPG, or was it maybe even a hindrance because you had to change your way of thinking?
No, I think it was a huge boon to have that background. For me, it's been indispensable. I don't really see how I would have done it without. Or, of course, if you play a lot of CRPGs, of course you can get, that's also a background to come from. But for me, this is pretty big. And also because I think I spent a lot of time both as a GM and also writing my own systems for the last years. And kind of having to doing that is also really... because game development is a separate part from just implementing the game you're designing. Designing a game, and having designed game in any medium, I think is really helpful when designing a computer role-playing game, because there's a lot of design. It's not just all writing code. There's really a lot of tinkering that goes into making the rules flow smoothly. Just making a magic system is a huge task in a role-playing game. Where you get a lot of help from, coming from a tabletop RPG background, I would definitely say. Absolutely.
Yeah, I noticed that when I first started playing SKALD, obviously a lot of the attributes like, strength and this and that, fortitude, and then the skills, I was like, okay, that, I can see right where that's coming from, but then the magic system, the clerics, the divine magic, you have a stat called devotion, which would be kind of like mana, but for clerics. And when you cast spells, it costs devotion points. And then the wizards have you have to manifest, you have to learn a spell, you manifest, you get a certain amount of manifest between rests. So you have a list of spells, you manifest, it tells you which ones you learned, and then you can cast those. So it's, I could see where all that came from, but it's not just D&D called something else. You've got your own system going on.
Yeah, and I think that's, I'm changing the magic system somewhat, but the design pillar is staying in. And the whole idea is that I wanted a magic system where you don't just get to cast the same spell every combat.
Mm-hmm.
Like D&D, you never memorize other spells. You always have the same spell. Or like in Might and Magic, you have the same spell on the quick slot, and you keep casting it. I wanted something where it's like playing Magic the Gathering, where you're dealt a hand, and then you have to try to optimize what you're dealt.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. You have a percentage chance. Each time you quote-unquote manifest, which is an attempt to learn your spells, you have a percentage chance of what you learn. And then from there you can cast it. So it's not a mana-based system. It's it's almost like you said, there's a little bit of randomness, and then you've got to take your skill on top of that randomness. So pretty neat stuff. So I know that people almost joke around about it in your Discord channel now. People can look up SKALD on Discord, SKALD. Al's Discord handle is SKALD RPG, SKALD RPG. I think that's the same as your Twitter, SKALD RPG.
It is. Yeah.
And people almost joke around now about the Magic Candle. So obviously you're a huge fan of the Magic Candle series. Are there any other major CRPGs that you just really loved growing up or love now? And did any of those influence, your design of SKALD RPG?
Yeah, sure. I kind of came into computer role-playing games at the tail end of the golden age. So honestly, I didn't play Ultima until later. The early Ultimas and the early tile-based, the kind of games that SKALD look like, aren't necessarily the role-playing games I played the most growing up, because I was still kind of young when those were real big. So when I really got into computer role-playing games, we were actually on Fallout 1 and 2 and the Baldur's Gate series.
Okay.
That's kind of more formative in a sense. So there's actually, in kind of the way the story is structured, or is going to be structured, because the story in the demo is just a placeholder. But the way I'm writing the story, the way I'm kind of thinking about the dialogues as a way of advancing the story and so forth, it's a lot more inspired actually by games like the Baldur's Gate series.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, but it has like a more old school coat of paint, since it has kind of like this tile-based, low resolution look.
Which I love the sprite look. I'm a huge fan of that, and I'm also any game that has turn-based combat.
Yeah,
I'm a fan of, because I feel that turn-based for me, now this is for me, everybody comes to it differently. One of my things that made me so excited about computer role-playing games when they started getting big, when I was in high school, junior high, whatever, it's like, oh, I can play D&D or whatever if my friends aren't around. So exactly. I want kind of a tabletop experience. And so, most tabletop RPGs have a turn-based tactical combat system. So that's what I like. And now we're getting games like Pillars of Eternity. They first came out with sort of a real-time with pause system, but now they've added a turn-based mode. So that's the best of both worlds right there, if you can make it work. So, all right. So Magic Candle was big for you. You said so you went back and replayed later the Magic Candle series, games. Is that kind of what happened?
No, actually, the Magic Candle games were pretty much, that was when I started doing role-playing games. And by the time, because the Magic Candle games are kind of anachronistic, especially the later ones, like Magic Candle 3 and Bloodstone, which is basically Magic Candle 4. And that was like 94, I think.
Oh, were they? I thought they were earlier than that. Yeah, I'd have to. Yeah, it's sad. I helped write the book on it, and I can't keep it all straight. So it definitely has an aesthetic from an earlier time.
Absolutely. It's kind of outdated by the time it came out. So,
right.
So that was kind of like my big tile and turn-based RPG. And after that, it was pretty much Fallout, Baldur's Gate, and then beyond for me. And then I, years later went back and replayed like the Ultima 4, Ultima 5, the earlier Magic Candle games as well. So
what is your opinion of those games coming from it? Because a lot of the love those games have is because people played them in the context of when they first came out. And then if people go back and play them later, they're like, I don't see what the big deal was sometimes. So what was your impression of those older classics, playing them later?
I think there's a lot of interesting aspects to them, but I really keep pounding my head in the wall, especially in terms of the UI. I don't have it in my fingers, so it gets really, really exhausting to play sometimes. And there's all these little strange quirks that make it kind of. There's a lot of frictions in those games.
There can be, yeah. And at the time, they seem incredibly innovative, but with hindsight. It's interesting, Matt Barton. I'm a friend of Matt, but I'm also a fan of. I never miss one of his shows. And love Matt Chat. In fact, I'd love for you to talk with Matt. I don't know if y'all have talked yet or not, but I'm happy to introduce you.
We have. I was on Matt Chat in May, actually.
Were you really?
Yeah. I think you were there.
Oh, in your Kickstarter. That's right. Yeah, when you were doing your okay. I'm over 40 now, so I get a pass. Well, I'll tell you what. If you ever want to talk to Matt again, I'll try to introduce you. Try to the live radio, baby. I got to flail around and try to save that one. Yeah, I don't miss a show. Oh, you were on a show? So anyway, he went through recently and replayed some of Pool of Radiance. And
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, that is one of the big classics, and he was just gnashing his teeth at the UI. So, he was really just, so that's what that made me think of. Well, I'll tell you what, we're going to get to a break. We come back, I want to talk about SKALD. I want to talk about, what kind of game it is, where people can get it, your plans for it, all of that good stuff. So, I definitely want to talk about that when we get back. And then I'm going to really quick check in with my producer, Zach, because I always have to do a Zach banter or else I'll get in trouble because certain people out there love Zach. For them, this is the Zach show. Zach, what's up, man?
I'm doing fantastic.
All right. So I got to, the Ouachita Baptist playoff season ended
2 weeks ago.
Rather quickly, probably swifter than most people expected, considering they went in undefeated.
Mm-hmm.
There was speculation that Sal's grandmother and her dog Muffin, who loved to have you on the show, there was speculation that possibly there was a shadowy dog.
Spygate.
Muffin Gate. But I got a statement through the Mobley Detective Agency, who's our go-between, sent a statement that Sal's grandmother, her dog Muffin, and Sal's the head of our news team. He's not related to this except that that's his grandmother. Mm-hmm. Her dog Muffin sent a statement, said that on the advice of his counsel, that he will not speak about that football game, whether he was there or anything. Mm-hmm. So just, it's just, he's pleading the fifth.
That's right.
Actually, on the advice of counsel.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, just wanted to, yesterday, Mark Pellegrini and I were on the Dave Ellswick show. It was fun 2 hours. We're talking about movies and stuff. Everybody, I just thought it was interesting that all four of us, Dave, Mark, myself, and you, all have Disney Plus.
That's right.
That's a pretty big take-up rate.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody's got it.
Well, they haven't been promoting it for what, a full year?
Man, and it's Disney. I mean, Disney's a juggernaut, whether people are like it. Now, Al, do they rolled out Disney Plus to Norway yet? The streaming service for Disney?
Honestly, I didn't look for it yet.
Okay.
But I kind of have to. I have to get the Mandalorian. But,
man, it's so good. We spent like almost an hour talking about it on a different radio show yesterday. Mandalorian is so good. Yeah, it's really, really good. But anyway, so I just wanted to ask you, Zach, you mentioned the only thing you've watched yet on Disney Plus was something called The Lion Guard.
Yes,
What is The Lion Guard?
It is The Lion King. It's basically Simba's son. He's got his son. It's his show, basically, following around him and his friends, and it's called The Lion Guard.
That's okay. Is it animated? Is
animated.
It live action?
Yes,
that's all
animated.
You've watched?
Mm-hmm.
And you still haven't seen The Mandalorian?
I have not.
All right. Well, listen, I want to get to a break. And then when we get back, we're going to talk more with Al of Scape-IT about his retro-inspired and retro he's designing it like it's a retro game by hand, all the pixels and sprites and everything. SKALD against the Black Priory when we return on Shane Plays Geek Talk.
Comic book lovers, visit thewildstars.com today. From the mind of author and comic book industry expert Michael Tierney, it's not just a comic book, it's a comic book novel. The Wild Stars is sci-fi and so much more. Learn the explanations behind UFOs and space gods. This isn't the Twilight Zone. This is the region of the Milky Way galaxy known as the Wild Stars. We guarantee you've never read anything like it. The complete comic book novel took 20 years to tell, with one reviewer noting, the story of the Wild Stars stretches ambitiously across space and time, from small-town murders to the destruction of planets, with every event given multiple layers of meaning. If you haven't read The Wild Stars, you're missing out. Visit thewildstars.com today.
Are you a fan of thrilling adventure, daring suspense, and just a touch of romance? Cursova has you covered. Since 2016, Cursova has been publishing the very best in contemporary fantasy and science fiction, retro pulp, And for you D&D gamers, Appendix N style fiction. Based in Little Rock, you can pick up their flagship magazine locally or at Michael Tierney's The Comic Book Store on Treasure Hill Road or Collector's Edition on JFK in North Little Rock. Swing by one of Michael's stores and pick up an issue or find them on Amazon. CIRSOVA, doesn't start with a K, it starts with a C. CIRSOVA, Cursova Magazine. Check them out today. I want to go ahead and throw out some love to Game Goblins. Some goblins are your friends. Game Goblins is Central Arkansas's premier retailer of Magic the Gathering, Warhammer 40K, board games, card games, RPGs, miniatures, and hobby accessories. Call Game Goblins at 501-224-GAME or visit them online at gamegoblins.com. That's 501-224-GAME or gamegoblins.com. Conveniently located 1121 South Bowman, right on the corner of Bowman and Canis in West Little Rock, and staffed by friendly employees, Game Goblins has expanded their store size, and there's plenty of room for exciting inventory and tables for play space. You'll like that space because Game Goblins has gaming events every day of the week. For all of your gaming needs, I heartily recommend Game Goblins. Make sure to check out their customer loyalty program that rewards you based on your actual purchases. Game Goblins earns your business and keeps it. First-time customers, mention Shane Plays and receive $10 off your purchase of $50 or more. Tell them Shane Plays sent you. And folks, if you do visit any of my sponsors, please tell them that you hear about them on the show. That helps them know that their advertising money and the relationship we've built is time and money well spent. Shane Plays Radio is blessed to have sponsors, and we appreciate them very much. However, did you know that you can also support the show as an individual for as little as $1 an episode? Simply go to patreon.com/Shane Plays.
Shane Stacks on the radio.
Oh yeah, I love that. Hey, welcome back to Shane Plays Geek Talk, a journey into the things we love. I'm your host, Shane Stacks. Thanks so much for tuning in. Got some quick show notes to go through here, and then we're going to be talking with Al, who is in Norway, and he's a one-man dev team through Scape-IT on SKALD against the Black Priory, which is an extremely cool computer role-playing game that not only looks retro, but is retro. It's being built and developed using pretty much the same techniques. So, and we're going to be talking about that more just in a moment. Want to remind everybody that this is live talk radio. So if you're listening on Saturday at 1 p.m. Central, you can call in at 501-823-0965. You can also always tweet me at Shane Plays, that's ShanePlays. And if you're listening to the podcast or YouTube or Krypton radio version of the show notes are up at shaneplays.com, ShanePlays.com. Last week's show is out there in the podcast verse, and it's running on Krypton Radio and replay, but it's episode 203, and that's Bold Comics with Mitch Breitweiser of Allegiance Arts and the cool new stuff they're doing, including getting, this just blows my mind, comic books into major retailers like Walmart. Big stuff. The podcast goes out on the blog at shaneplays.com, iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher, Podbean, SoundCloud, YouTube. I had a typo there. YouTube and more. And then also Shane Plays, last but never least, is carried on Krypton Radio. Krypton Radio is SciFi for your Wi-Fi, kryptonradio.com. And since the topic today is computer role-playing games, don't forget about Matt Barton in my book. I was honored to be the co-author on the second edition of Dungeons and Desktops, A Complete History of Computer Role-Playing Games. Super cool book if you're into this kind of thing. Now, back to Al, all the way via the magic of Skype from Norway. Al, welcome back. Thanks for your patience during the break.
No problem.
Yeah. Is there, before I move forward, is there anything, I always try to remember to give my guests, was there something that you wanted to make sure to remember to bring up or mention? It doesn't even have to be related to SKALD that, on the show today. Is there anything yet? Okay. Nope. All right.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, cool. Always like, because here's what happens with radio. It's like, the next day you'd be like, oh, I meant to say, or like right after, like I meant to say. So I always at least try to prevent that. So we're talking about SKALD against the Black Priory, which you had a successful Kickstarter campaign several months ago. Now you're in demand on Indiegogo. So people can go to Indiegogo, search for SKALD, SKALD, against the Black Priory. That'll be in the show notes on the podcast version of the show. And you can get it via in demand. And has the response to, like, you know, the crowdfunding, has it been more than you expected? Or, I mean, like, what has the response been to the game?
The response has been really good to the game, especially considering that this is a side project. I'm a one-man team, and there's definitely a limit to how much time I can spend into and resources I can spend doing promotion, advertising, and polishing. So the game was pretty rough when the Kickstarter started, and I wouldn't necessarily say I was surprised, but the response was a lot better than I had hoped. I think we funded at 260% of the required sum.
Oh, that's great.
So yeah, it's really, really good. And I think had the game been, even just a little bit more polished, and I've had a little bit more resources, the game would have funded much more, I think, because I think it struck a nerve with people. And it turns out that, it might be a niche, but at the same time, people are really, really passionate about products in that niche. So the community is awesome. That's probably the biggest.
You have a great Discord channel. I have to give you credit that you have a very active Discord channel, and you, as the developer, are more active than most in your own channel. So I've noticed that.
Oh, that's good to hear. Yeah, no, but because it takes a lot of work, but when you have really, really passionate people, it pays off. It really, really does. And so I'm happy to make a game. You can make a game that everyone likes, or you can make a game that, most people won't care about, but some of them will love it. And I would much rather be doing the latter, making a game that some people really, really, really love. Because I'm making the game that I would like to play myself. So finding like-minded people is definitely part of what makes this a cool journey.
I think that's a great approach, because when you try to please everybody, you have to water stuff down. You have to when you try to please everybody. And then you never finish because you're just constantly, I'm adding this, I'm adding that, what about this? What about that? But, you have if you just try to please the people that are going to connect with the spirit of your game, I think that's great. So, and I think that's been a strength of what you've done so far, because you're like, here's my game. This is what it is. And, like it or not, and most people have responded very well. Like, the RPG codex can be savage, man.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've hung out there for years. I have a lot of respect for them because I'm a big fan of unvarnished honesty. You're getting an honest response. They can be pretty rough though. They've been pretty good on your game. I haven't seen a lot of attacks on your game or anything like that. You seem to have gotten a good response from them. So, and they're your target audience, the RPG codex type of player, in my opinion. But here's a description of the game. It's SKALD Against the Black Priory is an upcoming dark fantasy turn-based RPG featuring modern design combined with a classic 8-bit look and feel. It's set in a dark and gritty fantasy universe full of tragic heroes, violent deaths, and eldritch horror, which that's a pretty great description. It says the game is in development with a release date of summer 2020. You still feel like you're kind of on target for that, or?
Yeah, more or less. It might be late summer until I get it out. Okay. And but more or less, yeah, it's been going really, really smooth development so far.
Fantastic. It says the game is in development with a release date of summer 2020. It will release for Windows and Mac first, and then you're hoping for handheld devices down the line. So it's party based. You can even the demo lets you make your own party or use pre-made. For the sake of time, I used pre-made, but I got a pretty good sense of how characters work. And then on this demo, now I want people to keep in mind this is an alpha demo. You know, and there's a beta coming out, I think around Christmas. Is that still kind of your plan?
I would say over the new year.
Over the new year? Okay.
Yeah. So I'm a few weeks behind on the beta, but it's still, you know, it's
okay.
Trivial. Yeah.
So how many, like I played about 40 minutes, like if somebody plays through and hits most of the content, how long is the demo?
The demo, I would say, let's say 60 minutes.
Okay. So so it's basically the sewers.
There's a few other dungeons, but they're not really big, and I've not really put a lot of emphasis on adding more content to the demo, since all the content in the demo is just placeholder anyway. It's just to test stretch your legs. So
can we do I'll fund the development. Can we do a special demo for Matt Barton that's just for him? And when he enters the sewers, so many rats fill his screen that it crashes his system.
Rats all the way down.
Just nothing but rats.
Nothing but rats.
That guy's insane. I've literally thought about getting him into therapy over his lover. He's like, yeah, baby. He loves a rat. So
he does.
Okay, so you got about roughly 60 minutes. How long do you envision the final game being?
For the final game, I want to have the critical path through the game narrative won't be more than, I would say, a couple of hours if you really power through it, because I want people to be able to finish it quickly if they want to. Just to
and
get
you know what, man,
experience.
I'm fine with that, dude. I'm 47-year-old. Yeah. I have a kid. I've got a family. I don't have time for these 100-hour games.
Exactly.
Right.
And then, you know, it's pretty easy to just pad around the critical path, but don't pad in the critical path.
Right. I'm so great. Yeah, get 100 hours of side quest, but let me play the main game in a reasonable time frame. That's great, man. And, you know, there's some people that were like, no, I want that 100 hours, and I get that. But all I got to say is it's hard for me to finish these long games these days.
Absolutely. Me too.
What can you tell us about what the Black Priory is? Like, what do they go? You said SKALD against the Black Priory. What can you tell us about the story?
The story of the game is still being written, but long story short, the Black Priory is the site of a monastic order turned killer cult, basically.
So are those now? This is a little bit of a spoiler, so you can answer it or not. In the sewers, I ran into some bald dudes. Yeah, is that kind of a foreshadowing?
Might be, yeah.
Might be, okay.
Absolutely.
It was a creepy interaction, I'll just put it that way.
Yeah, exactly. And it might turn out that the Black Priory is just, you know, that's just the first part of a much bigger and darker picture than what it appears.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, because we managed to hit a lot of stretch goals on the Kickstarter. So we are, you know, we're now able to make a plot that's a lot thicker than we were originally imagined.
Now, are you doing all the writing and everything yourself, or are you subcontracting any of it?
I'm currently on the writing side. I'm doing it all myself, but I don't intend to do it all in the final product. I have funding to do freelancers, and all of the funding will go towards freelancers. And it's all basically sitting in an account now. But most of the heavy lifting I'm going to do myself, because that's part of the fun of the project.
Okay.
So I started writing these background articles that go up on the devlog about the setting, and like I'm going to do one on the magic, on how the magic system is going to work, and on the history of the world. And I really enjoy that. So that would be a shame to have to put out, because I really enjoy doing it myself.
So folks, you heard it here. The first freelancer that the Kickstarter got is going to be Chris Avalone.
Oh,
I'm joking before everybody gets all freaked out. He's the stretch goal that walks like a man. I love Chris. That Jedi Fallen Order just came out, and he was involved with that. So, all right, got a couple other questions. We've only got about 4 minutes left, believe it or not. So I gotta power through these. Speaking of power through stuff, do you know when you come off of Indiegogo? I know you're in demand on Indiegogo, so people can go to Indiegogo and still get in on this. Is your price going to change once you go like quote unquote published, or like what do people have to spend to get a copy, just a basic copy of this game?
It'll probably be somewhere between $15 and $20 as a baseline on Steam, and hopefully also on GOG.com. And there's always sales going on, so I would say realistically somewhere between $10 and $20. I don't intend to drop the prices too low. I spent a lot of lot of work goes making a game like this. And if you want the game, I think you're fine paying $15 for the game. So
right,
somewhere around.
I mean, the demo was a lot of fun. So, what are your future plans for SKALD? Do you already have an ideas for sequels or other CRPGs, or are you going to be like this is it? We do SKALD against the Black Priory, and then I'm done. I mean, like, what are your plans?
SKALD is being developed both in terms of becoming a strong IP and also in terms of being a very reusable and expandable engine. So there's a lot of room for doing things like making sequels. That's definitely on the drawing board. And I really, really want to, my dream would be to publish some kind of tabletop RPG product for the game as well.
That's happening more and more these days, where there's an adjacent, you have a computer role-playing game, but that you can also get the tabletop setting. I'm seeing that more and more. Yeah. So, all right. Well, so you got SKALD. Folks, remember again, it's SKALD against the Black Priory. It doesn't just look retro. It basically is retro, the way that Al is developing it. Hopefully to have it sometime by the end of summer 2020. It is a very retro, classic, party-based role-playing game experience. Some of the influences were Ultima. What were the other influences that you mentioned?
Magic Apple, the Infinity Engine games.
Excellent. So, and it's, the demo, which is an alpha, and Al continually mentions, this is just an alpha. Please have mercy on me. I thought was pretty smooth.
That's good.
Yeah. Now the dog did give me $1 or a gold piece for a trail ration. But because I was trying to feed him because he looked hurt, but he gave me a gold piece for the trail ration. So, I was trying to feed the dog. So, anyway, folks, go check it out now. Is the demo still, like, if they support on Indiegogo, can they get the demo, or is the demo closed down for now?
If people join the community, I will probably give them access to the demo in a couple of weeks, regardless of if they back or not. If they back, they also get the vertical slice, which is kind of a neat little piece between the alpha and the beta version.
Okay.
And then if they back at a certain tier, they also go into beta testing. So join the community.
Yeah, I need to get my hands on that vertical slice, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
now, by join the community, you mean Discord?
The Discord, yeah.
Okay.
That would be the best. But you can also look me up on Twitter or just subscribe to the devlog as well.
Okay. And it's SKALD RPG, SKALD RPG on Twitter. Also, there's a SKALD Discord server. I got to wrap us up, man. Al, I've really enjoyed having you on. Stay in touch. Looking forward to continuing to see how the game unfolds. I don't know if you're familiar with the format of the show, but I always end, if I can, on the bad joke of the week. So, and it's supposed to be bad. Okay, I just want to, I forgot to get you to sign the waiver for psychological damages. So please, like you say, it's an alpha. Have mercy on me. But here we go. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. 3 fish are in a tank. One of them asked the other 2, "How do you drive this thing?"
Oh man.
Yeah, it's bad, baby.
Yeah.
It was so bad that it scalded my brain. See what I do? Oh, Zach's in there shaking his hands. All right, Al, it's been a pleasure. Folks, it's SKALD against the Black Priory. Very cool computer role-playing game. Go out and support devs who are trying to make stuff that are close to our heart. That's it for this week, and we will catch you next time on Shane Plays Geek Talk.
You must gather your party before venturing forth.
Well, the rats reproduce at such a ferocious rate, they can't be contained, stopped, or even slowed down. Let's do the math. Each mother rat can have up to 12 babies in a litter. She can have a litter a month, 144 babies a year. Her babies will start having babies 2 months after they're born, and those babies will start having babies 2 months after that. One couple, just one, can produce 15,000 descendants in a year.
You must gather your party before venturing forth.
Shane Plays Radio is blessed to have sponsors, and we appreciate them very much. However, did you know that you can also support the show as an individual for as little as $1 an episode? Simply go to patreon.com/ShanePlays.